Welcome back to the DCPU. I am Thomas, Keeper of Lighthouse, here with my co-host Frank, and we are diving deep below the surface of the one project keeping the DCEU afloat, Aquaman.
There were plans for an Aquaman film dating all the way back to at least 2001, when the film was set to star Kiefer Sutherland and Monica Potter. Kiefer Sutherland? I can't imagine that. Yeah, maybe he could have pulled it off. I mean, that would have been around the time 24 was on the air.
I gotta look up, I wonder what he looked like that around there. He looks very old to be like an Aquaman. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
It's not just you. I don't see it either. In 2004, it was reported by FilmJerk.com that Alan and Peter Rich of Sunrise Entertainment planned to bring the character to the big screen, with Robert Ben Garant tapped to write the screenplay. Alan and Peter Rich are most known for their feature film versions of Starsky and Hutch and The Mod Squad.
And just as a side note, it was funny, I found out that Todd Phillips directed Starsky and Hutch, and as we know, he did The Hangover and then also Joker in 2019. Have you ever seen Starsky and Hutch? The movie?
Oh, no.
It's, I don't remember much of it because I haven't seen it in a long time, but Snoop Dogg is in it.
Oh, Snoop Dogg.
He plays Huggy Bear.
Oh, well, he's great. He's a man of great integrity. At the time, Robert Ben Garant was an actor known for Reno 911, and he had also worked as a writer on the 2004 action comedy film Taxi. He would go on to write several other films, including The Pacifier, Herbie Fully Loaded, the first two Night at the Museum films, and the Baywatch film reboot. However, this project would eventually fall through.
Aquaman's next shot at the silver screen was in 2007's Justice League Mortal, which we talked a bit about in the last episode. Prior to the film's cancellation, Santiago Cabrera had been cast in the role of Aquaman. Looking at Santiago's filmography, some of the roles he's best known for are in the TV series Heroes as Isaac, and Big Little Lies, and the films Transformers: The Last Night and Che Part 1. And I don't recognize him from anything, but like looking him up on IMDb and seeing pictures of him from around that time, I think he kind of gives off Aquaman vibes. For 2007.
I can see it.
In a Q&A with the DC Entertainment chief Diane Nelson in The Hollywood Reporter in July 2013, she said that she foresaw Aquaman being a character that they would focus on in the future after the success of Man of Steel. Additionally, Jeff Johns, the DC Entertainment CCO, also said in an interview on November 13 with Variety that the character of Aquaman was a priority character for the company.
On August 12, 2014, Warner Bros. Announced it had hired Will Beall and Kurt Johnstadt to pen separate scripts for the character's solo film. Both of these scripts were being worked on at the same time, but only the better version of the two would move forward at the studio. Kurt Johnstadt is a frequent collaborator of Zack Snyder, working with him on both 300 films, the two Rebel Moon films, and Snyder's latest directorial venture, The Last Photograph. He also worked on True Vengeance, Act of Valor, and Atomic Blonde. Will Beall, who we mentioned in the last episode, was given the job to write Aquaman after his Justice League script had been mined for ideas. While work on the scripts continued, the hunt for a director was on. In a 2019 interview with Empire, Peter Jackson revealed that he was approached twice to direct the film, but declined both times. Jackson recalled a conversation that he had with Kevin Sugihara. He said, "Are you a fan of Aquaman?" I said no. 6 months later, "Peter, are you a fan of Aquaman?" I said, "No, Kevin, I already told you this."
It's so funny, he just completely forgot the conversation.
Maybe he just thought maybe I caught him on a bad day. 6 months from now, I'll just bug him about it again. I mean, look, I don't blame him for trying to pursue Peter Jackson twice. I mean, this is the guy who made Lord of the Rings, for fuck's sake.
On April 10th, 2015, The Hollywood Reporter ran an article stating that James Wan was being eyed for the director's chair. Warner Bros. Had worked with James Wan previously through the Conjuring series, and it is also worth noting that this will be the first DC project produced by Wan's Conjuring collaborator, Peter Safran, who will become an extremely important piece by the end of all of this. On June 3rd, 2015, less than 2 months after the initial reports came out, James Wan signed on to direct Aquaman. He was no stranger to franchises, creating 3 of his own in Saw, Insidious, and The Conjuring, and recently directing the 7th Fast and Furious film, which eventually grossed $1.5 billion. In an interview with Uproxx in June 2016, Wan revealed that Warner Bros. Had given him the choice to pick between a Flash and Aquaman film to direct. In the interview, Wan explains his choice, saying, "For me, we've seen various versions of The Flash. There's a popular show on TV, and there was a great one in the 90s. But the thing that ultimately pushed me more towards Aquaman is I love the possibility of creating a whole new world. I've always wanted to do a world creation story and visually create this amazing, incredible, magical kingdom. And also, I love the fact that Aquaman is an underdog character. I love the fact that people like to make fun of him. I feel the bar is a lot lower, and I can have fun with them. I think people are a lot less precious with him than, let's say, you were doing a Spider-Man or a Batman film or whatever. I think also you'd have a lot of pressure because the Flash show was on at the time when they were actually trying to make it. If it had been off by then, I'd say that there'd be less pressure to make it, like, different from what it already been, but since they're airing, like, simultaneously, you're definitely going to be under a lot of scrutiny.
Oh yeah, the company is going to be competing with itself. I think it's great reasoning.
I think before this, the only time he was in live action was in Smallville.
Yes, he was in Smallville, and guess what? He was played by Alan Ritchson. On November 12, 2015, The Hollywood Reporter revealed that David Leslie Johnson had been hired as a writer for the film as well. Some sources were saying he was hired to write a third concurrent script, while others said he was helping Wan streamline the project. His other writing credits included Red Riding Hood, Wrath of the Titans, and The Conjuring 2, which of course he worked with James Wan on. In July 2016, Will Beall was announced as the writer of a new script based on a treatment by James Wan that would follow the director's creative vision. Johnson would remain on the project as a writer to some capacity. There's not a lot of interesting information out there regarding the casting for the film, except for the fact that Michael K. Williams was also considered for Black Manta. I don't know if you know who that is. I mean, he was a big TV guy. He was on The Wire, Boardwalk Empire. He's amazing. But I don't see him as Black Manta at all.
He looks a little old to play it at the time.
For sure, yeah. And I don't think he would match the vibe either. I definitely think Yahya Abdul-Mateen was a way better choice. It's also fun to note that Michael Beach, who played Manta's father in the final film, voiced Black Manta in the animated series Justice League Unlimited. Tamora Morrison, who plays Aquaman's father, was specifically requested by Jason Momoa. According to Morrison, Jason gave me the nod for Aquaman, just as an opportunity to meet me. I think Once We're Warriors really moved him in a way, both in terms of his culture and his own identity. I think it shook him up a bit. I even heard him say a few words to his kids when they visited the set. "This is the fellow who got me into the business, kids." He really respected my performance.
You're not going to mention that he's Jango Fett?
Well, I was gonna mention that.
Oh.
Go ahead. Please.
Nope.
And Tamora Morrison, for those who aren't familiar, is obviously Jango Fett, and later on, Boba Fett in the Star Wars franchise.
He also plays every clone.
Yeah, he's actually got like 6 billion roles in that franchise. And something we probably should have mentioned back when Batman v Superman's episode dropped, or last week, is that Jason Momoa had originally auditioned for the role of Batman. But Zack Snyder had him in mind as his first choice for Aquaman, and so that's the role he ended up getting instead.
I could not see him as Batman.
Me neither. Something else I noticed while I was digging this up is Josh Brolin was actually almost Batman instead of Ben Affleck, which is something we should have mentioned a few episodes ago too, but I didn't know that until we were researching for this episode.
You know, sometimes you can't find everything when you're looking for it.
Yeah. I don't think I could see Josh Brolin as Batman in this franchise either.
Principal photography began in Australia on May 2nd, 2017. A majority of the film was shot at Village Roadshow Studios in Gold Coast, Queensland, with additional production in Newfoundland, Sicily, and Morocco. As the premise would lead you to believe, this was an extremely VFX-heavy film. Effects company Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, did most of the heavy lifting, creating nearly 600 square miles of densely filled underwater environments for the action to run through. For all the underwater sequences, actors would be placed on hydraulic rigs that would be nicknamed tuning forks, which would allow them to stay buoyant and appear to be floating as they were essentially puppeteered by stunt workers who controlled the rig. This film pushed virtual hair simulation to its limits, requiring ILM to make some serious investments in upgrading its tools for the job, ending up with new software that would simulate each individual strand independently. James Wan would also be in constant communication with the hair VFX team in order to redirect the results, in case it organically resulted in something unflattering for the actors. 600 square miles of underwater environments is insane.
Yeah, they handcrafted like over 200 unique buildings, and I remember reading as well in an interview with some of the VFX chiefs, they had like over 2,000 buildings in the city, and on the like fish highway or whatever with all the fish cars all the Atlantean cars or whatever. They had like over 150,000 cars.
Jesus.
Very effects heavy. Which, I mean, of course, it's Aquaman.
Yeah.
But
I think it looks really good, actually, for the most part.
yeah, I agree. It looks great. When I first watched it in theaters, the hair stuff just kind of blew my mind. I really wondered how they did that.
It looks real. Even if there's other fantastical elements, like the giant sharks or whatever, don't look the most realistic, which I think they still do look really good. But like the hair, that one looks completely realistic. Like if you didn't tell me that that was VFX, I'd think that they somehow had it waving around or something.
And I think that's because something like a giant shark with a saddle on it that's going to look fake no matter what, because that's just not real. Like, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But everybody knows what hair looks like when you're underwater. So to see that pulled off convincingly, it doesn't look uncanny in the slightest.
Aquaman would end up releasing in cinemas on December 21st, 2018.
Other films releasing around this time included The Mule, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Bumblebee, Vice, rest in peace, Dick Cheney, and Glass. The only real competition here for Aquaman is Bumblebee and Spider-Man. But Spider-Verse was an animated feature, and Bumblebee was a soft reboot. It did not garner the same attention that Michael Bay's original Transformers movies did. In DC Comics history, Jeff Johns' take on the series is highly regarded as a turning point and a good place to jump in from. His run ran for 52 issues, from the beginning of the New 52 all the way until Rebirth. At the time of the film's release, Aquaman was in the middle of a comic run by Dan Abnett and Brad Walker that started during DC Rebirth. They didn't completely redesign the character to be more in line with Jason Momoa, which would make sense because that is a pretty drastic departure from the character's appearance. They did seem to give him longer hair and a beard around this time in the comics though. And there was a crossover event at the time between Aquaman and the Justice League called Drowned Earth. This obviously featured Aquaman pretty heavily, and was likely a way to synergize with the film's release, especially as the event started the same month the film hit theaters.
In 2018, Action Comics reached number 1,000. To celebrate this crowning achievement, DC made an oversized issue with an assortment of stories from all-star creative teams. It's a little ironic that they would reach such an important milestone and had absolutely nothing planned for Superman in the DCEU still. Like, even a nice little short film that they could have released would have been interesting.
I mean, they don't have a Superman. Henry Cavill's out by this point.
I think they did produce like an animated short, but you know, if it's 1,000, like 1,000 of issues of Superman, and it's probably almost like 100 years, like that, you should be celebrating that. And they can't even do it to the fullest extent because they don't have a Superman. Mara also got her own comic series in 2018, likely in relation to her substantial role in the Aquaman film. Additionally, in January 2018, DC held an event at the Museum in Washington, D.C., with pop-up shops, autograph opportunities, screenings of DC media, and discussion panels for Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, The Flash, Gotham, Supergirl, and Freedom Fighters The Ray, as well as premiere screenings of the Black Lightning series and Batman Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah, I've never even heard of this.
This probably wasn't as popular because, I mean, if you're looking at the stuff present, it's all like the CW shows, which, I mean, they might be popular, but they're not like that popular. If it was more movie focused, I feel like they would, but as we know, they don't have any movies to show. So Titans TV show also premiered on October 12th, 2018. This was a darker TVMA show, which definitely gave some DCEU and Zack Snyder vibes. I think a lot of people will automatically know of it as the one where Robin said, "Fuck Batman." Classic Dick Grayson quote.
And on June 14th, 2018, AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner would officially be completed, with AT&T renaming the company from Time Warner to Warner Media. A little over a month later, during the DC Films panel at San Diego Comic-Con, the franchise would receive a new name, Worlds of DC. Not much better than Justice League Universe, but hey, I'll take it.
The Flash movie was originally slated to be released this year, but due to just a plethora of factors, that didn't happen, meaning that Aquaman was the sole DCEU movie released in 2018.
Now we're going to get into our plot synopsis and discussion. In 1985 Maine, lighthouse keeper Thomas Corey rescues Atlana, queen of the underwater kingdom of Atlantis, during a storm. They fall in love and have a son named Arthur, who has the power to communicate with sea creatures. When Atlantean soldiers sent by King Orvax, the ruler of Atlantis, arrive for Atlana, who fled her arranged marriage, she's forced to leave her family to protect them from her people. She promises to return when it's safe and goes back to Atlantis, entrusting her advisor, Nuidus Volko, to train Arthur. Becoming a skilled warrior, Arthur rejects Atlantis upon learning that Orvex executed Atlana for loving a human and birthing an illegitimate son. Okay, so it looks like the plot synopsis is already moving some stuff around, because we kind of get some of this flashback later on in the movie. It's not really important where it is in the synopsis.
I wish my name was Nuidus.
Nuidus Volko?
Yeah. Sounds Russian.
That's a great name. Every name in this movie is amazing. What's your name? Nuidus Volko? Adlana? Oh, my name is Nereus. My name's Orm. You know, just some crazy names here. My first note, we finally have a DCU movie that's bursting with color. I mean, this movie is, from frame one, so vibrant. And not in like a Skittles rainbow vomit way like Suicide Squad was. No, this film actually has color. It looks warm. It looks inviting. It looks like a real, lively world.
Especially once they get underwater later in the film. That's when it gets really bright and colorful.
Oh, yeah. But even, like, the sunset against the shore with the lighthouse and stuff, I thought that was pretty. Also, this movie's got a lot of great transitions. Even just in this introduction sequence, you took note of that too?
That was my first note. When they're on the floor, and then it pans over to her on the couch. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Well, that, and also, like, how the lighthouse turns into the snow globe, and, like, all these other things. Just so many great transitions. James Wan must love his transitions, because they're all over the place in this movie, and they're all very creative. So seamless.
It's my favorite parts of it. Throughout the whole movie, it was pretty good. I like the land suits for the Atlantean soldiers. They're like armor.
I also took note of that. I love the Atlantean armor. I love all the costumes in this movie. But the way that these guys have like that really shiny white, clearly plasticky armor where they kind of look like Power Rangers bad guys, I really fucked with it. With the glowing blue visors too.
I also definitely noted later in the movie, which we can talk about later, because I think the costumes really come out more later, but the costume design is pretty on point for this movie. I have a note here. Arthur at the aquarium is like Frank at the zoo with the chimpanzees.
Oh, come on. No, the one time I went to the zoo with the chimpanzees, I got into a staring contest with one of them, and then it tried to kill me with a spear. So it's not exactly the same.
The music for the film in the opening scenes is already a massive step back in the right direction for me after the Justice League Danny Elfman score debacle.
Yeah, Rupert Gregson Williams, I believe, came back from Wonder Woman and did this one. Kind of the same things I had to say in our Wonder Woman episode. Very warm, very appropriate score, unlike the Danny Elfman score from Justice League, which I felt was totally unremarkable, except for the things that he had reused from older movies.
I'm not sure if it's specific to this movie. I did feel like it came out a lot when they had like scenes with Black Mana, but I noticed a lot that he mixed in kind of like some electronic like synths in during like battle music, which I thought was kind of cool to contrast with like the normal like strings and instruments. But I did like this opening. I think it kind of bookends the film pretty well because they go back to it at the end.
It is very storybook-esque, and like Wonder Woman, it is a little formulaic, but there's something nice about it. Something kind of like eating a warm, home-cooked meal, you know?
Yeah.
A familiarity that I am more than happy to receive after some of the previous stuff that this franchise has put out.
It doesn't feel cliche. It feels like there's some heart to it.
This movie has sincerity. Like, this movie is one of the wildest, craziest, batshit superhero movies of all time, but it wears it all on its sleeve. Like, it is completely sincere. It kind of reminded me of, like, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies for that same reason. Comic books are silly. It's good to embrace that. You should not be self-conscious about it. And I think that's why so many superhero movies are bad. The people writing or directing these things feel embarrassed that they're making them. But I think it's pretty clear here that James Wan, this movie was so fucking fun, and part of it is like, it's not that it didn't take itself seriously, but it also didn't treat the audience like an idiot.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something, because I did notice that there was a degree of camp, but it wasn't ever like too over the top. It was just the right amount. In the present, Arthur has become known as the metahuman dubbed as the Aquaman by the public. 1 year after Steppenwolf's defeat, Arthur confronts a gang of pirates hijacking a Russian submarine. Their leader, Jesse Kane, is killed while trapped under a torpedo, leading his son, David, to vow revenge against Arthur after he refused to help save Jesse in retaliation for murdering innocent people.
Permission to come aboard is like one of the best introductions that one of these characters has ever had. I was laughing my ass off when he was facing the other way and he turned his head around his shoulder and he had that little smirk. Oh.
That's kind of like the camp I'm talking about. Like, it's just the perfect amount. I like this scene, though.
It's like a Schwarzenegger one-liner, not like a Joss Whedon one-liner.
Permission to come aboard.
Yeah, he would have been a fun choice for Aquaman. Going back to the costumes, Black Manta's goons, awesome outfits. His outfit is also pretty cool. Again, big stupid helmet, but when I'm watching this movie, I'm not laughing at how silly his costume looks. I'm like, damn, that looks sick.
Well, they also show later there's a whole reason to make it larger.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked that they built him up throughout the whole movie, including where we see in this first scene. And I did think that it was like a good way to show his kind of Black Manta beginning, because, you know, he's like, please save my dad. And he's like, you save yourselves. Let the sea be the judge of you, or ask the sea for mercy.
Which is great, because it's the sort of attitude that wouldn't work and didn't work for Superman in, like, Batman v Superman, but it works great with Aquaman, especially this version of the character. And you're right, like, this whole scene is a great introduction to Black Manta. He's charismatic, he's capable, and now he has motivation. And honestly, it's hard to blame him for having that motivation. Yeah, him and his dad are piece of shit pirates, but the hero just refused to save his dad.
I wonder if it's because he doesn't really see himself as a hero. And I wonder if he could go back at the end of the movie to the beginning of the movie, if he would save him or not.
You know what? I think he would. I think that's part of his arc in this movie.
Becoming not just a king, but a hero.
Not even just a king, because at the beginning he's still like just kind of staying. It's weird because it's kind of like what Wonder Woman was doing. Like Wonder Woman, her whole thing was like she's isolated herself for the past 100 years or so, and Aquaman's kind of doing the same thing where he's bitter, and he has more of a reason, I think, to just fuck off and stay around his own neighborhood. But when he feels like it, you know, he'll go save people. So it's a lot like Wonder Woman, I guess.
He's a part-time hero.
Yeah, when he feels like it. Can I quickly just say another one-liner that I really loved from Michael Beach?
Yes.
When Michael Beach says, "You need to stay alive so you can kill that guy," I laughed my ass off.
But this scene, I really liked. Well, first of all, I thought that the whole submarine was like good sets, because you could tell it wasn't like CGI or anything. There was like whole electric boxes and hallways and stuff. And then I think that the fight choreography was really good here and stays good throughout the film. And also, you could really see this is like the first time where I started noticing the really visually interesting shots that were like different from the norm. Like they have the POV of the gun firing when he pushes it away, or the camera tilting with the bad guy being thrown against the wall. And it was just a very dynamic like camera feeling during the fight scenes in this movie.
You've got some narrow hallways, you've got some really clever use of the set, like the way he slams that guy with the door, and then later on he opens that other door with the guy in front of him. They're having some fun here. And I'm having fun too.
It's interesting to note that there's a lot of like relationship between like father and son throughout the film, because there's Arthur and his dad, Black Man and his dad, and then Orm and his dad, kind of, because we don't see him, but he clearly has a big influence on his life.
Yeah, that is very cool. It's very different from all the other movies. It gives it sort of a Shakespearean epic kind of feeling, like a historical epic kind of thing. I don't know. And then, yeah, as the movie goes on, we introduce more characters, and we introduce these royal ties and more familiar relationships. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
It almost made me wish that Black Manta was the main threat, though, because I think it kind of would have been interesting to go and see the difference between like their relationships with their fathers. But I think they do kind of get into that in the second movie a little bit.
Yeah, one of my notes later on near the end of the film was me pointing out that, hey, you know, I love Black Manta in this. He's not in it a ton, but he's great, and they've already set him up, and the movie made the smart choice not to kill him. And so, because they made the choice of leaving that door open, we get to see him again in the sequel. And while this is all going on, King Orm Marius, Orvax's son and Arthur's younger half-brother, is now the new ruler of Atlantis, and he persuades King Nereus of Zabel to join forces in uniting Atlantis and destroying the surface world for polluting the oceans. If Orm successfully unites all 4 kingdoms, he will become Ocean Master, commander of Earth's most powerful underwater force. They're ambushed by a submarine, prompting Orm to unleash a tsunami. However, it's later revealed that Orm orchestrated the attack after hiring David and Jesse, Black Manta and his father, as they were hijacking the submarine to create a false flag operation. When Manta and Orm later meet, Manta makes a pact with him to kill Arthur, and Orm in return provides David with an Atlantean battlesuit for the mission. I love Dolph Lundgren in this movie.
I think he does. It's kind of like a king who's kind of like sick of everything. He's like, I'm just doing my job or whatever.
He has the voice and the jawline. He just really is the perfect kind of guy to play the role of this badass, aged Atlantean king. I think he's a perfect choice for this.
This was what I pointed out that I liked the costume design in this movie, or at least when I first noted it, because the armor that they're wearing is like, it's like medieval-ish, but also has a like unique undersea twist. Like Nereus's one pauldron is like a seashell kind of shape. So I like that they had like an inspiration of medieval armor, but also threw in a twist of it being unique, because it's obviously something different that's been developed over hundreds of thousands of years.
Very distinct from other fantasy films.
Was this the first introduction to underwater scene too?
I believe so, yeah.
I like how they it's cool.
Yeah, it's just
because
cool.
They do look like they're underwater. But I also like how they don't really play it as that different. It's almost, you could see it happening on land, but it's just happening underwater. They're not like doing anything over the top to be like, oh, we're underwater.
Yeah, when they're having conversations and stuff, it's never distracting. Like, I'm just absorbed. I'm just like, my brain just accepts, okay, we're underwater. Fine. Moving on. I'm listening to the conversation. And I love the effect that they put on the actors' voices when they talk underwater, too.
I didn't remember how kind of evil Orm was going into this movie, because he just stole that, or had them hijack the submarine, and then had it basically like bombard this meeting, killing innocent people, all to be like, oh, the humans are attacking us, that's fucking crazy, we should kill them. And then calling the tsunamis in, which would be scary as hell. And I thought it was pretty scary when he's driving on the freeway, or not the freeway, the road, and he looks over and there's just a battleship coming towards him on a giant wave. I did have a funny note here, because I think there was a flashback in between that it already covered. And it was when he's teaching Arthur, and he says, oh, we can speak underwater, and he goes, we can do more than that. And I said Volko was on Epstein Island.
Oh, come on. Yeah, the plot synopsis already mentioned him, but we have this character who is Orm's advisor and also trained Arthur as a kid, who will pop up throughout various flashbacks in the movie. Volko, played by Willem Dafoe, and he is just perfect in this. He's perfect as like this advisor who is sometimes like an evil schemer, but he's not evil because he's helping Arthur. But he's also just, I don't know, he's fucking great in every movie he's in. Going back to the Sam Raimi references, he's the Green Goblin in Spider-Man, and he's awesome in that. And this is nothing like that, but it's also, yeah, it's got a level of camp to it, and he's just great. He's also got like an elfish appearance that kind of works with the Atlantean thing.
Did you think that, like, so around this time, it's like 40 minutes in when we really start to get to the issues like of the movie? And did you think, like, Wonder Woman, they could have trimmed off a bit more of the beginning? Did you think it was too long?
Honestly, I never thought about the runtime up until this point. Later on, there was a part where I felt it kind of dragged, and I became aware of the runtime, but I was just so absorbed in the visuals and everything that I didn't notice. I was just too busy taking it all in.
There was a couple, I did note that I thought that maybe there was a bit too many flashbacks.
I do think the flashbacks with Volko don't add too much to it.
Yeah, I think maybe just putting them at the beginning, because they're not even that long of flashbacks. They're like a couple minutes long. I think I would have just rather got it over at the beginning and then just went on with the rest of the movie.
It could have worked better that way. You're correct, they are very short, and it does establish Arthur's love for his mother and his bitterness that she presumably abandoned his family to never come back, and his hatred of Atlanteans and that whole world, which we do see a glimpse of in Justice League, but we don't see the motivation why. So maybe it would have been nice to get more of that up front instead of later on sprinkled throughout.
Nereus' daughter Mara, betrothed to Orm, refuses to aid them and requests Arthur's help. Arthur accompanies her to Atlantis after Orm's tsunami nearly kills his father. Vulko urges him to find the Trident of Atlan, a powerful artifact of Atlantis' first ruler, to reclaim his rightful place as king. Mara and Arthur are ambushed by Orm's men, and he is captured. Orm blames him for Atlanna's death and nearly kills him in a duel before Mara rescues him. She and Arthur journey to the fallen kingdom of the Deserters, hidden under the Sahara, where the Trident was forged, and unlock a holographic message that leads them to Sicily, where they retrieve the Trident's coordinates. Meanwhile, Orm imprisons Vulko and coerces the kingdom of the fishermen to pledge their allegiance to him by killing their king.
I think that's our first a lot in a little section of the plot synopsis this episode.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so we get the introduction of Mira. We met her in last week's movie, Justice League. I quickly noted that her accent is completely different. She's trying to...
Yeah, her British accent's gone.
Yeah, she's just speaking like an American, which, hey, that's okay. That's fine.
And you would think that the people of Atlantis would have more of... If anything, they'd have their own accent, not a British accent. And that's kind of like how I feel, because they do it in Star Wars a lot too, where they'll have like British accents in Star Wars, and there's not British people in Star Wars because they're in a galaxy far, far away. So why do they have a British accent?
Well, because people know British people are evil, I guess. But Mira's not, so I guess it's good they got rid of that. Oh yeah, so this is when Mira and Arthur go to that boat underwater. Cool set, really dig it. It's another one of those scenes where you've got some exposition, like Vulko explains the origins of the Trident and the history of like the golden age of Atlantis when they invent an unlimited energy source, which is a crazy thing to just casually drop and never reference again. Then we also have the underwater boat fight, which, again, good choreography. Aquaman takes out those white armored guards, and he sort of graduates to fighting a harder tier of enemies with his sick red crab armor. It felt like Star Wars with the Imperial Guard, or kind of like a video game, you know, he beats all the white armored guards, and then he's got the next tier of guards that are harder, higher level guards. But in a good way, like a video game, not a bad way. When you say a movie's like a video game, that could easily be taken the wrong way. Also, there's a great one-liner here from Arthur, just laugh my ass off delivery from Jason Momoa. He says, "Your fish ship has been marinating in chum butter. I'm not going to smell like swamp butt." Amazing.
And then he sniffs his armpit. She says, "It smells better than you." And he goes, "Ugh."
Like, without trying. He just seems like a very likable guy.
I think he does a really good job, because while he is, for like the majority of the movie, kind of like a party boy in like a man's body or whatever, there's also a lot of scenes where he gets to flex his acting chops, and he actually is like good. Like, he gives very good performance in dramatic scenes.
He's not always a dumb dude bro, for sure. There are a lot of scenes, like you just said, where he has some nuance to him. Especially when he's with Orm. Both Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa, when they're interacting with each other, you can tell that both of them want to just be brothers. Like, when they're having conversations, Orm explicitly says later he feels conflicted about his hatred of Arthur after he actually meets him in person.
Because he even tells him if he leaves, he's like, "We can put this all behind us. You just got to get the fuck out of here."
Yeah, and Arthur says, like, "I always wondered what my brother was like. I always wished I could meet him. I didn't know what a dick he'd turn out to be." This is a love that both of them have been missing. They've both lost their mother, and they've both lost a brother that they never met. Again, it feels very theatrical. It works, and you're right. Momoa pulls his weight.
I think I'll also give props to Patrick Wilson, who's really good as Orm as well.
Yeah, Patrick Wilson is fantastic.
Yeah, the fight was good. I did feel bad when he broke his mom's trident, though. I was like, damn, that sucks. Because you could tell that he was like, oh, fuck.
And maybe that's part of having the flashbacks sprinkled throughout, as we get a reminder that it was his mother's trident.
Maybe, yeah. I like that scene when they're fighting, too, and they clash, and there's a huge explosion. It's when they go head towards each other, and the crowd is like, yeah!
And they go nuts! They love it! Tell me your thoughts on Pitbull.
It's not horrible, but then they reveal that it's a remake of Africa by Toto, and then it just makes me even madder.
Hey. It's only sampling Africa by Toto.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't listen to the whole song.
It's called Ocean to Ocean.
There was a couple... Maybe all the needle drops didn't work for me.
I don't remember any other needle drops.
There was this one. There's the weird Depeche Mode one when he's making his armor. And then there's another one later on in the movie. They kind of came out of nowhere, and it kind of took me out because it wasn't established enough early on. I don't know, that they were going to be doing that. It seemed kind of like a studio thing, like, we should put a song in there.
They should have just had Pitbull do the score for the entire movie.
What they should have done is when he's on the plane and they show the map, I should have said, Mr. Worldwide.
I've also got a note here. Another great Arthur quote. Redheads, you gotta love them. He just lets out like a Tom and Jerry scream, which he lets out a bunch of those during Justice League, and I laughed every single time. And
Yahoo!
Yeah! It's just great.
I think they almost could have just cut out that part and just had them had Volko decode the message and give it to them.
That was the part where I felt it kind of drag a little bit, for sure. I think the Kingdom of the Deserters was my least favorite part of the movie. I do like when Mira waterbends the sweat off his forehead, even though that's like lifted straight from The Last Airbender.
You know what? It might be to play up their chemistry more, though.
Good point. Yeah, I also made note of that, how they are kind of... they have that one scene in the temple where she kind of jumps and like they're holding hands for a second. And also, when they're on the sand dunes, he's trying to convince her that, humanity and the surface world aren't so bad, and she can't really judge a people she's never met. And she gives a nice comeback to that, like, hey, isn't that what you've been doing with Atlantis your whole life? So I maybe this is here just to give Mira and Arthur some more time to develop their relationship.
I think it is, because we do have them at Sicily, but most of that's a montage, and then it kind of gets stopped by the fight. I did think that the them finding the path to the trident was a little contrived and a little bit too convenient for me, because that bottle is thousands of years old, and to have that statue still be in like the perfect positioning and have it point exactly to where the trident is, and just it not being destroyed, and this was a little too convenient for me. It kind of reminded me of the dagger in Star Wars.
I also thought about the dagger in Rise of Skywalker, but I thought this was way more logical than that.
It's a bit better, because in that one...
it's more than a bit. It's more than a bit. I mean, the dagger, let's not give Rise of Skywalker any credit. I mean, that dagger is based on the wreckage of a spacecraft that would be built thousands of years later. That doesn't make any sense, no matter how you slice it. This, yeah, it's a bit improbable, but it makes some sense, and I personally liked it.
I didn't hate it. It made me raise my eyebrow just a little bit.
It's a little convenient.
And then I guess there was just that like montage where they walk around the town a bit, and I think it's trying to show that like what he said is coming to pass. Like, she shouldn't judge the surface based off what they did.
Like, because she goes on a rant about how all the surface dwellers do is pollute the oceans.
I did like where they had her eat flowers. I have more to say about the next part. Finally, rechristening himself as Black Manta, David battles Arthur and Mara with his elite commando squad that was gifted to him by Orm, but is defeated. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. By far.
It's a good fight scene. Black Manta's cool. Like, he seems genuinely threatening. He fucks Arthur up pretty bad.
I like how we first get to see he's working on the armor before he attacks them, and then we get to see how he evolves it and makes it better, and then gets ready for the fight. And then you're right, he is a threat, because he actually damages him this time. Last time he tried to stab him, the sword just clanged off him, because it wasn't Atlantean steel or whatever. But this time he actually stabs him, he's burning him with his lasers. Definitely puts Aquaman on the ropes for a minute.
Yeah, for a secondary villain, he is kicking his ass. There's some fun choreography here, some fun set pieces. There's the part where Mara uses the bottles of wine to make like wine shards and stab the Atlantean guys by like water bending. That was fun.
The part where the guy sticks his head in the toilet?
Yeah, the guy scrambles to the toilet so he can breathe. Also, there's a part that stuck with me where a couple of the characters, I think it's Arthur and Black Manta, are fighting in the foreground, and then the camera pushes into the background, and it's almost like a different layer, like a stage, where Mira is fighting some of the troops on the roof. Maybe I'm mixing up who's who there, but
No.
I thought that was a really creative way to move the camera during the fight.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about this whole scene, is because from the beginning, they kind of have a thing where it goes back and forth between them. Like, they'll be fighting, it'll zoom past, and then it goes to Mara fighting, and it'll zoom back out, and it'll go to Aquaman fighting. And I think it's really unique, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other examples of something similar to this in, like, a superhero movie, and I think it makes it unique and stand out.
It's very smooth, and it kind of ties into what we were saying earlier about the really nice transitions that this movie has.
There's the one shot where it's following the one guy who's below, and it's following him running through a house, and then, like, as he goes through a wall, the camera goes out a window and then goes up above to see Mara running on the roof. It's just very, like, smart and clever filmmaking, which I think isn't present in a lot of the other movies, like camera work like this. It makes it unique and stand out, even in the DCEU. Other than that, I don't have any other notes, though. I just really like that how that whole scene evolves and plays out.
Yeah, it's a great scene. And Black Manta, like we briefly mentioned at the top of the plot discussion, they don't kill him off. They keep him alive. He lives to fight another day, just like a real comic book villain would, which is also refreshing. After this, Arthur and Mira fend off amphibious monsters of the trench, and a wormhole transports them to an uncharted sea at the center of the Earth. They are reunited with Ilana, who survived and escaped into the uncharted sea, but could not find her way back. Arthur faces the Karathan, a mythical sea monster and guardian of the Trident. It allows him to claim the Trident, which grants him control over the Seven Seas. Orm leads his army against the Kingdom of the Brine to declare himself Ocean Master, while in turn, Arthur leads an army of marine creatures against him. Orm's followers embrace Arthur as the true king upon learning that he wields Antlin's trident. Arthur spares Orm's life after beating him in a duel, and Orm accepts his imprisonment after discovering that Arthur rescued their mother. Ilana reunites with Thomas, while Arthur ascends to the throne. Again, a lot and a little, but let's break this down. So we have the trench. The trench is awesome. It is genuinely scary. There are parts of this, the way the monsters are designed, the way it's lit, the way things are framed. There's some really scary, creepy, really cool stuff going on here.
Yeah, the trench scene was awesome. It didn't really do much besides let them know that they were where they needed to be. I would have maybe liked to see them do a little bit more. I don't know what that would be. I know they do show up a little bit later in the final battle, but it's kind of just they chase them to this portal, which I did not know was a portal.
I didn't either. I didn't get that impression. I just thought it was a pocket of water that the trench creatures were scared to go into.
But then apparently it's a whole different dimension or something? I don't know. It was kind of weird.
It's nice to see his mom again, although I think I saw that coming, and you probably did too, right? I just don't think you would get Nicole Kidman for this kind of movie and only use her for like 5 minutes of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's nice that he gets her back, and then him and Orm can kind of have, like, their mother back, and I guess she is kind of a plot device in that regard, but...
Yeah, she's not in it much. I'm curious to see how much she's in the second one.
If she's in it. I don't remember if she is or not.
Yeah, I have no clue, but I hope she is.
I mean, the island that they went to did seem pretty cool. It had, like, dinosaurs and shit.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Hollow Earth from the new Monsterverse franchise.
Kinda, yeah. I'd vacation there.
I don't have any notes. I mean, I do here. My next note is the Karathan.
Voiced by Julie Andrews.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I knew she sounded familiar, and I looked her up while I was watching, and yeah, it's fucking Mary Poppins.
Yeah, I was about to say it's kind of crazy that they got her, and then just was like, yeah, voice this.
We're going to get Julie Andrews in our movie, and she's going to voice the Kraken. That is an inspired casting choice. We've also got John Rhys Davies as the Brine King. He's Gimli in Lord of the Rings, and he's also Sala in Indiana Jones, so that was cool.
Another voice that I noticed pop up was Jaimin Hansu as the king that Orm murders earlier in the film.
Oh, the fish guy. Okay. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. I have a bullet point here during the final fight. This movie is fucking crazy.
The The final fight's crazy.
It is insane. The amount of stuff going on. It is wild. It's unironically, I'm going to use the word epic.
It is. It's pretty cool.
Truly an epic finale. Yeah. You've got all this crazy shit going around, projectiles and explosions and underwater volcanoes, and here comes Aquaman with this giant fucking squid.
Yeah, and that thing's like 5,000 feet tall, and he just comes up like it's nothing.
Is he a mecha pilot now? I mean, it seems like he's kind of ratatouilleing the Karathan. I think even without the trident, that would be enough to get everybody else in line.
Pretty much, yeah. I wouldn't want to fuck with that thing. I'll point out both their costumes. The final Ocean Master costume and then Aquaman's final costume both look amazing.
Ocean Master's helmet is something that looks like it's ripped straight from the comic books, and I think in any other movie it would look ridiculous, but again, because of the tone that they've established and they've stuck with, it looks cool. Like, the Ocean Master helmet looks really cool, and it's not something that I ever laughed at or thought was silly, even though it is something that's inherently pretty goofy looking.
I like that they did that in this movie. They actually respected, like, the source material and kind of made their costumes fit that instead of trying to make their own thing.
I mean, especially when you're working with a character like Aquaman, there's no compulsion to make things grounded. We're dealing with something that's inherently fantastical, so you should get weird with it. You should take it right off the page and put it on the screen.
I think I only have one other note about the final battle. Well, I guess I'll first of all add, one of my favorite things about the movie is that the fight scenes are like, they're not quick cuts. You actually can see them fighting, which I wanted to save it to the end to point out because it's apparent here as well. But like, you can see them going through each move, and it's not quick cut. It's not like you can't see what they're doing. You can see every action that the characters are taking while they're fighting. It's pretty refreshing because they don't do that a lot in comic book movies. But then besides that, I liked the final fight between them, but I hate the unbeatable trident spin move. I would just take that out of the movie because it's so stupid.
It's a little silly. It's a little silly that Orm goes for him after he sees him spin the trident around instead of coming up with a different move to get around it.
Yeah.
But it was fine.
Why can't Orm do it? They could just spin into each other and just be like Beyblades.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I enjoy the final fight, but I just don't like that like undefeatable trident spin move because it just seems a little bit lazy to me. They could have just I mean, he does defeat him in combat. He could have just defeated him. I don't know why they had to do the spin trident move.
You know, I think maybe it's because it's something that Orm wouldn't be able to do at home. Like, they make a big deal out of how they have the Ring of Fire fight and Arthur's going to lose because he doesn't have the home field advantage. And I just realized that spin move with the trident is something that Volko, Willem Dafoe, shows him when they're training on the beach, and he's pulling the beach water into the air, the open air on the surface. So maybe Orm went for it because he doesn't know what that move is. Like, maybe this is the movie's way of paying off, hey, we're on my turf now. This is the surface. This is a technique you don't know how to react to.
It could be, yeah. In a mid-credits scene, Black Manta is saved by Dr. Stephen Shin, a marine scientist and conspiracy theorist obsessed with Atlantis, and agrees to lead Shin there in exchange for help in his revenge on Arthur. I don't know if I have much to say about it. Maybe it's not the strongest credit scene I've ever seen, but it's good enough, I guess. I don't quite understand how he was floating out in the middle of the ocean on a piece of wood.
My last note here is I love how in that post-credit scene, Shin has a TV playing of his own interview in the background of the lab. Diegetically, that is so funny, and it just makes him such a narcissist. Obviously, it's there to remind the audience who he is, because he only shows up for like 5 seconds in a TV interview during the movie. But the idea of him just listening to his own interviews on loop in the office is so funny.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's campy. It's comics.
Thomas, let's just get this out of the way here. Did you like Aquaman?
I don't think it's the best movie ever, and it might not have the strongest story ever, but it's certainly a super enjoyable movie even on rewatches, and everything from the camera work to the acting, music, just pretty much everything is really well done. And movies don't have to be amazing to be able to watch them again and again. This is one of them where it's perfectly serviceable. It's just a fun time. And it's easier to watch than, like, Man of Steel.
I think it is far and away the best of the movies so far. For every reason you just said, it is a world that is completely unique to any other movie that I've seen. It's just so creative and campy, but not embarrassed. It's not ironic. It's not sarcastic in any way. It is completely sincere, and there's so much love put into the production design and every aspect of it. I think it's a great movie. I think on its own it's a great movie, but as a piece of this universe, I think it's a great movie too, and sets up a lot of things that they could play with in the future. And you're right, the story isn't the most original. I'm cool with that. That's fine. I mean, Wonder Woman had the same problem, but the difference between Wonder Woman and this movie is that this movie is wildly more creative with its environments and its costumes and its characters. But Thomas, do you think it worked to shift the tone so much from his appearance in Justice League?
I think that there wasn't that much, well, at least in the theatrical cut of Justice League, which came out before this. I won't talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League because I don't exactly remember how much he's in it, but there wasn't that much about him in the theatrical version of Justice League, so I don't think that there's that much to, like, really alter who he is as a character. So I think that kind of helped the solo film build off the little breadcrumbs we got, and then actually let us get a bit more of who he actually would be going forward in the universe.
Now, do you think that it would have been better for them to make this exact film before Justice League?
I don't know. I don't feel like he did. I'm like, maybe, but also does it matter that much?
I think it matters because you wouldn't have to spend any time on him in Justice League, which that movie's already packed with like 3 other characters they've got to introduce and try to develop a little bit.
That's true. Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's like an MCU situation where if you had been introduced to Thor and Captain America in the Avengers, you'd give a lot less of a shit about them. But the fact that they have like a whole adventure on their own, you're going into it with an expectation of who these people are. And
you wouldn't have to spend as much time on him in Justice League and getting him to work, even if they could have just had like the post-credit scene be like Bruce Wayne coming to him. It could have just been one of the scenes from Justice League.
Yeah, you're right. They could have just made the post-credit scene for this like Bruce showing up at the village or whatever.
That's what they should have done.
Like they both, Wonder Woman and Aquaman, did the best they could with that constraint, but I think it would have been better for everybody if we got this development in before the team-up movie.
Aquaman and Flash, post-credit scene, Batman showing up, recruiting them. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah, because they both have a recruitment scene in Justice League. And it's like you could have taken all that bullshit about Batman showing up to recruit them for the team and this will they, won't they crap, cut that and spend more time with them actually interacting with each other and establishing dynamics. So I think we're in agreement. Aquaman, the film, is not hurt by the decision to set it after Justice League. Wonder Woman, the film, was not hurt by that decision either. But Justice League was definitely hurt by the decision to not put this before.
I agree.
And now we get to the aftermath of release. The film received a Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 66%, which is still fresh, and it has an audience score of 72%.
I think it's interesting that the audience score is so close to the critic score, because I feel like the audience is usually a lot more generous than the critics. And looking at the audience reviews, the first one gave it 0.5 out of 5 stars, stating, "Hate the girl in it, she sucks." So I guess it's possible that it could be an Amber Heard review bomb sort of situation.
Oh god. Yeah, probably. Again, that's one of the constraints we have to work with is we're looking at the Rotten Tomatoes scores in 2025.
I'm kind of surprised it's only at a 66%, honestly. I thought it was a bit higher.
On Metacritic, the film has a score of 55, which seems shockingly low to me. I mean, I know this isn't exactly high art or anything, but as far as mass appeal entertainment goes, this is pretty good.
It's very entertaining, at least.
It has a cinema score of A-, which checks out to me. But it doesn't matter what the critics were saying, because something that talks louder than audiences is money. So Thomas, why don't you break us off a piece of that box office?
So the film's reported budget is in the range of $162 to $200 million, which honestly, for the amount of CGI involved in the film, I think it's pretty impressive that the budget is that low.
That was the last note I had while watching the movie, was I just think it's crazy how this was considerably cheaper to make than Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, and possibly Suicide Squad. Like, it's cheaper than the team-up movie. It's cheaper than 3 of the 5 movies before this. That is crazy. Considering the stuff they're pulling off, I agree. It is insane.
The domestic opening weekend had a 3-day total of $72.6 million and a 5-day total of $105.6 million, which was due to it releasing on a long holiday weekend. It released on Friday the 21st, and then Christmas Eve/day was Monday and Tuesday, so a long 5-day weekend. And so far, if we go by the normal opening weekend window of 3 days, it's the lowest opening by far. But due to the 5-day window, it barely edges out Wonder Woman's 3-day total by $2.3 million. However, the film was amazingly popular overseas, especially in China, where it broke the Warner Brothers opening day record, hauling in $24 million, or 169.5 million yuans, and representing 86% of the market share. And that was just the opening day. It went on to make 93.6 million, 644.8 million yuan, in the 3-day opening weekend. On Monday, it grossed 12.99 million and crossed the $100 million mark. By its 5th day in theaters in China, it had made 135.3 million, surpassing the lifetime totals of every solo MCU film. And as of recording this podcast, the film is the 40th highest grossing film in China by box office revenue, with 2,013,200,000 yuan, which is $283,458,560.
Surpassing the lifetime total of every MCU film. Oh, every solo MCU film.
Every solo, yeah.
That's still crazy. That's like over a dozen movies by this point. We're talking about 2018. This is the year that like Infinity War came out.
Might be 2 dozen.
Yeah, this would be good to highlight. So let's just 16 movies. There's 16 movies. Crazy popular.
An additional insight into this is Warner Brothers only gets 25% back from the China box office, meaning they profited only $70 million from the lifetime box office total in China.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah. It remains the 5th highest grossing foreign film released in China. The films ahead of it, in order, are Avengers Infinity War, Furious 7, The Fate of the Furious, and Avengers Endgame. Oh, and it's interesting to note that Furious 7 was also directed by James Wan. Additionally, the film was a hit in the Philippines, where it became the country's 6th highest grossing film ever. It also became the highest grossing film of the decade in Romania, ranking number 4 on the highest grossing films of all time there. Which I feel like are kind of, well, at least Romania is a strange one to be high ranked in. But
A little weird when you consider what other countries it was breaking box office records at. I was also looking this up myself, and I saw that I think it was Bolivia, it was in the top 10, Russia, it was really popular. Yeah, this movie performed exceedingly well in a bunch of strange markets, like unusual, unexpected markets.
and the final totals: domestic, 334.1 million, international, 816.9 million, for a total of $1.152 billion. It's the only film in the DCU to crack 1 billion. And, fun fact, this movie makes up about 1/7 of the total gross of the DCEU. 1.152 billion out of 7.211 billion. It also had a net profit of 260.5 million, which was the highest net profit recorded for a DCEU movie.
The fact that this makes up 1/7 of the total gross, when we're talking about a franchise that has 17, well, one show, and 16 movies, that says a lot about how well this movie did, and it also says a lot about how the movies we're going to be talking about later don't do.
Yeah, it's I think it's kind of crazy that it's the only one to crack 1 billion. And I think it's also funny because it's Aquaman. The one that no one thought would crack 1 million, or 1 billion.
It is extremely ironic that the superhero that's the most mocked ends up having DC's highest grossing solo film, and highest grossing film, period.
Do you think there's any reason specifically or particularly why it did so well in international markets. Known box office aficionado, Frank. Have you talked to your sources in other countries?
I'm not one of those freaks that's obsessed with box office stats in r/box office or whatever.
That one's
yeah,
it's so annoying.
Yeah, I don't stick my nose in there, but
I do, because it's funny.
I
just don't understand why they're going so hard. They're like, this movie has to make money. Like, dude, you're not getting anything out of it. What do you care?
Yeah, I don't lift up that rock to see what's under it. Those are some strange people. But I guess just as a regular viewer, if I had to guess, maybe the appeal is that it's just so different. Like, there are no other Hollywood movies, and maybe I'm being a little presumptuous to say no movies in other countries delivering this kind of spectacle. Like, specifically this kind, like this underwater fantasy world. Avatar is maybe the closest, and the Avatar series by James Cameron also has huge international appeal. Maybe it was just the perfect storm. Like, they picked just the right date where the right amount of people felt like going to the movies, and this was the most attractive option to them. I will say it helps domestically and internationally that the film has such a star-studded cast. You've got two very attractive leads, and you've got a very experienced, high-profile supporting cast. So, I don't know.
I think there's probably some aspect of truth to the perfect storm thing that you were saying, but also, it's like a bright, flashy movie that looks like you should see it on the big screen. Maybe it's just nothing more than that.
While Aquaman surprised everyone with its billion-dollar performance and broad appeal, it alone was not enough to guarantee that the DCEU was in ship shape. With a wavering future, as their output was halved in the 2 years after Justice League, the captains of this franchise needed to make sure that this wasn't just lightning in a bottle. Because as the age-old adage goes, lightning doesn't strike twice. Thanks for listening. If you liked the podcast, or if you hated it, please let us know in the comments. And give us 5 stars on whatever app you're using to listen. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. I hadn't seen Game of Thrones when I watched this movie originally. I have now. He's great in it. His character is also kind of nuanced in that, but he's also... well, I'm going to cut that. He's a rapist. He's a rapist, mass murderer. He's basically Genghis Khan.
But there's nuances to it.